Hi, this is my 3040 Krag U.S. Springfield Armory rifle. This is the 1894 model, stamped on the receiver here. Uh, uh, these were basically designed for a stronger cartridge. It's the first smokeless cartridge adopted in the U.S. military, and it was designated 30 U.S. um, there were a lot of calibers and rifles in that time that were different manufacturers that come out with rifles in the 3040 Krag. Matter of fact, one of them took a record, Rocky Mountain elk in 1899, a record that stood till the latter part of the 20th century. These were hunting rifles for the most part. They didn't have very long service in the military. A lesson learned in the Spanish-American War, where I think the Army felt they were outgunned. I think it was the 7x57. So they upped the charge of smokeless powder in the rifle, but the locking lug mechanism, it only had one locking lug, and it started to crack of the faces of the bolts. So they looked for a better design. They come out with the 30-03 caliber, and then moved quickly a few years later to the 30-06, which everybody knows lasted for years in the U.S. Army. The subject on today's 3040 Krag list of mine is the sporterized Krag. Now this is a sporterized Krag. It has a Phage stock, and it has an aftermarket lineman sight. The original tangent sight I have over in a drawer here. I removed it. This is a little better sight. It has a little bit more, you can pinpoint it downrange a little bit better. You can see a little bit better the front sight. They just usually work better. This Krag I bought at a gun show back in the late 80s, I would say, and I got it off the vendor for $90. It had the original stock, didn't have the top wood, but it had been sanded down quite a bit to sporterize the rifle. And this isn't the original length of the rifle. They had cut some inches off of it. But for $90, I wanted a Krag. My grandfather hunted with a 3040 Krag and killed many deer with it, and just for the nostalgia of it, I wanted to have the rifle, and I got it, and I had it for several years. Didn't really shoot it that much. Then I started, casting bullets for 30 caliber, and decided that that would be the way to go, and I did. And hey, the thing shot pretty good at 100 yards. I'd like to take you out to the range today, but it's just the ice up here in Pennsylvania has been just ridiculous. I mean, it was all I could do. I had to use a coal shovel to get the ice off the sidewalk. And the range where I shoot, they don't have winter maintenance, so I don't want to get down in there because it's down in a hollow and not be able to get back out. So these rifles, I will be shooting these rifles and showing the accuracy results on this channel of mine. It just has to thaw out. But while I'm waiting for that to happen, I just thought it'd be interesting for you guys to take a look at my old Krag. This is a Phage stock that I got off of eBay back in the days where eBay wasn't really as popular as it is today. I think at one time I had seen on eBay they were selling bullet molds. Didn't know what they were. Said, unusual pliers for sale, $12 starting bid. It was, people just didn't know what they had, but the internet started to teach everybody pretty darn quick what they had, and of course that went away rather quick. But I bought the site. I bought the site for $40, and I bought the stock for $40. The stock was a blank that had a left-hand cheek piece, so it was made for a left-handed shooter. And I just ground the Monte Carlo or the cheek piece off of it, and made it that this is what it looks like. So this is where the cheek piece would have been on this rifle, and it's just the same now on this side. So pretty nice piece of walnut. I imagine I got it for a good price simply because it was, they didn't make any left-handed Krags, but they made left-handed stocks, and I could see right away in the pictures I could convert it to just shooting, right-handed, which that's the way it had to be cut out that way anyway. So that's the story of the getting it done. Of course, the barrel's been free floated in this. The action's been bedded by a gunsmith. It's been gone over. We don't see any cracks or any issues with the bolt. The bolt is very, very fluid. These rifles are known for they have a really, really nice action, and this is no different than that. I primarily just shoot, I would say, lower pressure loads, cast bullet shooting, 1,700 feet a second. I've shot it out to 500 yards. I've hit targets with it, not consistently. And I don't think it's the rifle as much as just the sighting apparatus just doesn't lend itself to shooting at great distances for me. There are guys that have a little better setup than this, obviously. But I've shot this in the military shoot. And, of course, they take points off for the aftermarket sight, but this sight was probably made maybe in the 1920s or 30s. It's pretty old sight. It's probably a 100-year-old sight. And, of course, the stock, it's just a Monte Carlo rip-off, a Fajan design, and it worked out pretty good for the rifle. There's really not a whole lot left to say about the old Krag, except for, if you're watching this, you already know how they work. These had a side loading gate. You just kind of dumped the shells in, popped it shut, and then just fed them up in there. They had, the Army wanted a single, a switch to turn off. You could single shot it. You literally have to, load one at a time. They just didn't want guys, blowing through their ammo or whatever. And you can see they're a substantially big cartridge. And I'll show you some pictures of that. But I have it set up like mostly for just shooting cast bullets and enjoying it like that. I shoot it about every year. I enjoy shooting it. It gets some looks at the gun range simply because of the configuration. The one thing I do want to talk about on 30-40 Krag is just how many guys hunted with them. And if I were to bet dollars to dozens to donuts, I'll guarantee you more deer have been taken with it than people. I mean, they weren't very long lived in the service, but they made hundreds of thousands of these things, and they were in armories for years and years and years, and then I think maybe even other countries adopted them, and they manufactured them for quite a while. And then, of course, everybody that got one, back in the 40s and 50s, you could have bought these things for $10, $12, $15. It wasn't, what a deal to get a hunting cartridge this significant for deer hunting. Even when the average price of a rifle might have been at that time maybe $45, $50, sometimes $100 for a bolt action rifle. If you're looking at in the 40s and 50s and 60s, of course, in the 60s, these guns that went up maybe to $25, and you could probably find them in the American Rifleman magazine if you had any old American Rifleman where they had these Krags. Before 68, the whole Gun Control Act, but then, and maybe even later, I'm not sure how that affected it, but then mostly at gun shows you could see, they would have tables of the things, just tables full of the things, really rough shape, and this wasn't worth saving. Like I said, it didn't have the top piece. It had already been cut off. The stock was already whittled down to the point where, it was just razor thin. And the way these actions are, and how close they are, you can see right here, and then how close they are at the bottom here. That lends itself to getting broke or busted if you drop one in the woods. So this is a much beefier stock and better for it, I think, than what originally I had to come with it. They had just sanded so much of it away that it was just razor thin, and I knew it would only be a matter of time before I'd have a problem with that stock. So all I can say is shooting before and after, a world of difference in accuracy. I mean, it just bedding the stock and getting everything straightened out and free floating the barrel really tightened up the groups for what it is. I mean, the barrel's not too bad. It's got good strong rifling in it, and I could shoot a lot of times under 2 inches at 100 yards using peep sights like this. So not a bad hunting rifle, just what you need. And I've never hunted with it. I've always taken the advantage of a good scoped rifle. I take every advantage I could when I hunted, and that's not a bad thing. I know there's guys out there that like to. I did go bow hunting, archery hunting, and I've killed deer like that, which is pretty. But the compound bows that we used back then were, it was they were just, if you can get close enough, you got a deer. And of course, I've taken deer with a handgun, and for just some reason, I never took this out hunting, and I usually used a 243 or a 308, one of my other rifles, but I never hunted with it, but I did enjoy shooting it. And that's the story of the US 3040 Krag. If you have any questions or comments, if you'd like to see more content like this, then leave me a comment, subscribe, like my video, and I'll just keep going with this until we get out to the shooting range and we can show you how these things work. Thanks for watching my video.